It was just another ordinary Saturday night, and a group of friends were hanging out together. They had gathered at one of their homes to enjoy some good food, talk, and laugh. The room was filled with excitement as the conversation shifted from one topic to another. Someone mentioned a popular play, and soon enough, the conversation turned to acting and performances. Everyone was joking around, discussing how easy it would be to act in a play. One of the friends, in a playful tone, challenged everyone, saying, "Come on, we should totally do a performance. How hard could it be?" The others laughed and agreed, turning the idea into a friendly dare. Some people suggested they all perform something together, but it was clear that no one was serious about it. They were just having fun. Then, someone turned to one of the friends, who was more quiet and reserved. "Why don't you perform? You've always been good at acting when we played those silly games in school. It'll be hilarious. Just do it for fun." It wasn't a serious suggestion, just another joke among friends. But the room fell quiet for a moment. The quiet friend, who had always enjoyed acting but never taken it seriously, felt a sudden rush of nervousness. She hesitated for a moment. The idea of performing in front of everyone made her heart race. But then, a thought crossed her mind. What if I just try it? It could be fun, she thought. After all, she had always loved the idea of acting, but she had never pursued it beyond a few playful moments in the past. This could be the perfect opportunity to give it a shot. With a deep breath, she agreed. "Okay, I'll do it," she said, trying to sound confident, though her hands were slightly trembling. The friends cheered, some excited, others just amused at the thought of seeing her perform. The mood shifted from casual chatter to eager anticipation. Everyone was curious to see what would happen next, but no one expected anything extraordinary. She stood up, a bit nervous, but determined. "What should I perform?" she asked, looking around at the group. One of the friends quickly mentioned a famous scene from a popular play. It wasn't the most complicated or dramatic scene, but it was one everyone knew. "You can do that one," they suggested. It seemed simple enough, and she figured she could handle it. As she took her place in front of the group, her heart was still racing, but something inside her shifted. She knew this wasn't a serious performance, just a playful challenge. But as she began, something unexpected happened. The words, the emotions of the character, everything flowed naturally. It was as if the character came alive inside her. She was no longer thinking about the room full of friends or the silly dare. She was completely lost in the moment, in the role she was playing. The friends sat there in silence, watching as she transformed into someone else. Her voice, her expressions, and her body language all seemed to convey the emotions of the character perfectly. It wasn't just an imitation. It felt real. The room, filled with laughter just moments before, was now silent. Everyone completely captivated by her performance. As she finished the scene, there was a pause. For a moment, no one knew what to say. They were all stunned. The performance, which had started as a joke, had turned into something much more powerful. There was a shift in the air, an unexpected recognition of her raw talent. She had given a performance that no one could have predicted. The friends slowly began to clap, unsure of what had just happened, but clearly impressed. "That was amazing," someone finally said. The words echoed in the room. "You've got something special." At first, she thought they were just being kind. After all, it was supposed to be a joke. But the looks on their faces told a different story. Little did she know, this spontaneous performance would be the beginning of something much bigger. She had no idea that, in just a few minutes, her life would be completely changed. What started as a silly dare had turned into a moment of discovery. Her own discovery of her hidden talent. In that moment, she realized that sometimes the most unexpected opportunities can come from the most unlikely places. What was meant to be a joke had opened a door to a whole new world. After the performance, the room was still buzzing with excitement. Everyone couldn't stop talking about how, Unexpected and impressive it had been. Her friends were genuinely amazed, but she couldn't quite believe what they were saying. It felt like a dream. Just a few minutes ago, she had been nervous about performing for fun, and now everyone was telling her she had talent. As the night went on, the compliments kept coming. One friend, who was known to be more serious about theatre, said, you should actually think about taking acting seriously. You've got something that not many people have. It's not just about memorizing lines, it's about feeling the character, and you did that perfectly. She laughed it off at first, not really taking the suggestion seriously. Acting? Her? It seemed too far-fetched. She was just a regular person who enjoyed acting in her free time. She had never thought about it as a career, and certainly never imagined she would get such praise for something she had done on a whim. But then, one of the guests, who happened to be a theatre producer, spoke up. I have to admit, I was not expecting that, he said, his tone now more serious. I've seen many amateur performances, but what you did was different. You made that scene your own. Have you ever thought about auditioning for a role in a real play? I think you could really go far. Her heart skipped a beat. Was he serious? It felt surreal. At first, she thought he was just being polite, or maybe he was just caught up in the moment. But the sincerity in his eyes made her start to wonder, could she really do this? Was there a chance for her to take this further? The thought of acting professionally had never crossed her mind. She had always kept her passion for it private, thinking it was something just for fun. Sure, she had always loved the idea of performing, but it was never something she considered pursuing. She had a regular job, a normal life, and no real experience in acting beyond small, casual performances. But there was something about the way the producer spoke. He wasn't just offering empty praise. He seemed to genuinely believe in her potential. And that made her pause. Maybe she was being too quick to dismiss the idea. She had always dreamed of doing something more meaningful, something that excited her, but she had never known how to make that dream a reality. The conversation turned to practical details. The producer gave her his contact information and suggested she take a few acting classes to hone her skills. It's a tough industry, he warned, but if you really love it and are willing to put in the work, I think you could be great. As the night ended, she walked home in a daze. It felt like the world had just opened up to her in a way she hadn't expected. All of a sudden, she couldn't stop thinking about the possibility of pursuing acting seriously. The idea seemed daunting, but the encouragement she had received made her feel like maybe, just maybe, it wasn't such a crazy idea after all. In the days that followed, she couldn't shake the feeling. Every time she thought about it, her heart raced with excitement. Could this really be her chance to do something she had always dreamed about? Could she leave behind her normal routine and step into the unknown world of acting? It was both thrilling and terrifying at the same time. Eventually, she decided to take a small step. She signed up for a local acting class just to see what it was like. She didn't expect to become a professional overnight, but she figured it was worth exploring. The first class was nerve-wracking. She was surrounded by people who seemed more experienced, who knew the ins and outs of acting. But despite the initial anxiety, something clicked. She loved it. The exercises, the improvisation, the chance to become someone else. It felt freeing. The more she practiced, the more she realized how much she had been holding back. Acting wasn't just a hobby for her. It was a passion, something she was genuinely good at. As the weeks passed, she began to gain confidence. She started to believe that maybe she could make it after all. Her friends noticed the change in her too. They saw her practicing lines, talking about acting techniques, and even researching different plays. It wasn't just a casual interest anymore. It was something she was taking seriously. And the more she learned, the more she realized that this was the path she was meant to follow. As the weeks went by, her excitement grew stronger. What had started as a light-hearted dare had now turned into something much more serious. She found herself waking up every morning with a new sense of purpose, eager to practice and improve. She had taken that small step toward pursuing her dream, and now, every time she walked into her acting class, it felt like she was stepping into a new world, one that felt more and more like home. At first, the classes were overwhelming. There was so much to learn, so much to take in. The other students seemed to know exactly what they were doing, while she still felt like she was playing catch-up. But with each passing day, she began to feel more comfortable. She learned the basics of stage presence, voice control, and emotional depth. She practiced different techniques to express the emotions of the characters she would play. Slowly, her confidence grew. The things that once seemed impossible to master now started to feel natural. Her instructor, who had been in the industry for years, noticed her progress and took her aside after class one day. "You've got something special," the instructor said, offering a smile. "Don't just go through the motions. Dive deeper. Feel what your character feels. Let it take over." Those words stuck with her. She had always thought that acting was about memorizing lines and performing them as best as possible. But her instructor's advice made her see acting in a new light. It wasn't just about the words. It was about the emotions behind them. It was about becoming the character, understanding their struggles, desires, and fears. This was where she truly began to connect with acting on a deeper level. One evening, after class, she was walking home when she received a message that would change everything. It was from the producer who had watched her perform at the gathering. He wanted to meet with her. Her heart skipped a beat. She had no idea what he wanted, but the possibility of something bigger was too exciting to ignore. She quickly arranged to meet him the next day. The meeting took place at a small, quiet cafe, where the producer greeted her warmly. "I've been thinking about you," he said, without wasting time. "There's a small role in a local production I believe you would be perfect for. It's not a huge part, but it could be a great start for you. Are you interested?" She couldn't believe what she was hearing. A real role in an actual play. It felt like a dream. This was the moment she had been waiting for, but she was still unsure. She had no professional experience and had only been taking classes for a few months. What if she wasn't good enough? The producer must have sensed her hesitation. He leaned forward, his voice gentle but firm. "Look, I see the potential in you. You may not have years of experience, but you have something real, a natural ability. You have to trust yourself and take the leap. Sometimes, that's all it takes." His words resonated deeply with her. She had always been afraid of taking risks, always worried about failing. But now, faced with an actual opportunity, she realized that this was her chance to prove to herself that she was capable of more than she had ever imagined. She agreed, though with a mix of excitement and nervousness. The next few days were a whirlwind. She had to learn lines, get into character, and prepare for her first official performance. The pressure was on, but she didn't back down. Every spare moment she had was spent rehearsing. She practiced in front of the mirror, tried different ways to express her emotions, and made sure she understood the character's motivations. Finally, the day of the performance arrived. She was both excited and terrified. It was a small theatre, with just a few rows of seats, but the lights and the stage made it feel much bigger. As the audience settled into their seats, she took a deep breath and reminded herself why she was there. This wasn't just a hobby anymore. It was her chance to show what she could really do. When the curtains opened, her heart raced, but something surprising happened. Once she stepped onto the stage, everything else faded away. The nerves, the fear, all of it disappeared. She became the character, completely lost in the role. The lines she had practiced so many times came out effortlessly. She felt the emotions of the character as if they were her own, and for the first time in her life, she realized that acting was not just something she did, it was something she was meant to do. The audience's reaction was immediate. They were captivated, hanging on to every word she said. By the end of the performance, she had earned a standing ovation. As the applause filled the theatre, she stood there, overwhelmed. With emotion, she had done it. She had taken a leap of faith and proved to herself that she was capable of something greater. The feeling of accomplishment was like nothing she had ever experienced. It wasn't just about the applause or the recognition. It was about knowing that she had discovered something she was truly passionate about, something that felt right. She was no longer just a person who acted for fun. She was now a real actor, ready to take on whatever challenges came her way. This was just the beginning. After the successful performance, things started moving faster than she had ever imagined. The standing ovation was not just a moment of praise. It felt like the first real step into the world she had only dreamed of. She was buzzing with energy, but also filled with a sense of disbelief. How had she gone from being a quiet person, taking acting as a mere hobby, to standing on a stage, receiving applause for her performance? In the days that followed, she couldn't stop thinking about how quickly everything had changed. She was still processing what had happened, the producer's offer, the role, and the overwhelming support from the audience. She knew that this wasn't just a fluke or a one-time thing. This was the beginning of something new, something she needed to pursue with everything she had. Soon her phone rang. It was the producer again. "You did great," he said. "I'm glad you took the chance. I have another role for you in a bigger production. It's a step up, but I think you're ready for it. I'll send you the details. Take your time to think it over." Her heart raced as she listened to him speak. A bigger role? So soon? She had only just begun to find her footing. But as the producer spoke, she felt a sense of determination rise within her. This was what she wanted. She had to push through the fear and doubt. This was her moment, and she couldn't let it slip away. The next few days were a blur. She spent hours going over the script for the new role, learning her lines, and trying to get into character. This was a much bigger part than the one she had played before, and the pressure was building. It wasn't just about performing for a few friends anymore. This was a professional production, with a much larger audience and bigger stakes. But she didn't let the pressure overwhelm her. Instead, she focused on what she had learned in her acting classes, the techniques, the emotions, and the way to truly embody a character. Each time she practiced, she felt more confident, more ready. She was determined to make this new role her own, just like the first one. As the first rehearsal for the new production approached, she felt a mixture of excitement and anxiety. When she arrived at the theatre, she was greeted by the director and the other cast members. The director was an experienced professional, someone who had worked on numerous productions. She could tell right away that he had high expectations, but instead of feeling intimidated, she felt motivated. She wanted to prove herself. The rehearsal began, and at first she felt like she was back at square one. The other actors were more experienced, and their performances were strong. She found herself watching them closely, trying to learn from their skills. But as the rehearsal went on, something shifted. The director gave her some feedback on her performance, praising her natural ability to connect with the character, but also pushing her to take things further. "You've got the potential," he said, "but I need you to dig deeper. Make it yours. Don't just say the lines, feel them. Let the character's emotions come through in every movement, every word." The feedback was exactly what she needed. She had always been afraid of taking risks in her acting, worried that she might overdo it or look foolish. But now she realized that the key to making the role truly hers was to take those risks, to let the character's emotions come out without holding back. The next few days were intense. She poured her heart into every rehearsal, experimenting with different ways to express the character's emotions. There were moments when she felt uncertain, unsure if she was making the right choices. But each time, she trusted herself a little more, and with each rehearsal, she could feel the character becoming a part of her. By the time opening night arrived, she was ready. She was nervous, of course, but the nerves were different now. They weren't filled with doubt or fear. They were filled with excitement and anticipation. She had put in the work, and she was confident that she could deliver. The moment the curtain opened and she stepped onto the stage, she felt a wave of calm wash over her. The audience was there, waiting, but she was no longer intimidated. She had transformed into the character, and everything felt right. Her performance was powerful, authentic, raw, and filled with emotion. It wasn't just the lines she delivered, it was the way she made the audience feel everything the character was going through. When the play ended, the applause was even louder than the first time. The audience stood up, clapping and cheering, and she couldn't help but smile. This was no longer a dream, it was her reality. She had found her place, and she had earned the respect of the audience, the director, and her fellow actors. As she took a bow, she realized how far she had come. It hadn't been easy, and there had been plenty of doubts along the way. But she had pushed through every challenge, and now she was exactly where she wanted to be. She wasn't just performing anymore, she was living her dream. The journey had only just begun, and there was so much more ahead. After the overwhelming success of her second performance, things really started to take off. The buzz around her talent began to grow, and opportunities that she had never dreamed of started to appear. It was hard to believe that just a few months ago, she had been sitting with her friends at a casual gathering, laughing and joking about performing. Now, she was a rising star, with people taking her seriously as an actor. One morning, she received an unexpected call. It was from a casting agent who had seen her recent performance. "We're casting for a new play, and I think you'd be perfect for one of the main roles," the agent said. "I've seen your work, and I believe you've got what it takes to play a lead part. Would you be interested in auditioning?" Her heart raced. A lead role. She hadn't even been in the industry for long, yet here was someone offering her a chance at a major role. It was exciting, but it also brought a wave of nerves. She hadn't had time to think about playing a lead. She was still learning, still growing, and a role like this could change everything. But then, she remembered everything that had led her here, the performances, the encouragement from her friends, and the support from the producer who had first believed in her. She had taken chances before and hadn't backed down. So why should this time be any different? She accepted the audition, and from that moment on, she threw herself into preparation. She knew this was a big moment, one that could shape her career in ways she had never imagined. The play was a dramatic piece, requiring deep emotional range and a complex character. She spent every spare moment reading the script, analyzing her character, and practicing her lines. It wasn't easy. There were moments when she felt completely overwhelmed by the complexity of the role, but she kept pushing forward. The audition day arrived, and she couldn't help but feel a mix of excitement and anxiety. She had been in smaller auditions before, but this felt different. The stakes were higher. As she entered the room, she was met by a group of directors and producers who would be watching her closely. She took a deep breath and reminded herself that she had prepared for this. When it was her turn, she stood in front of the panel, trying to steady her nerves. She took another deep breath and began. As soon as she started speaking the lines, she felt the character come alive inside her. Every word, every emotion flowed from her naturally. She didn't think about the people watching her. She was completely immersed in the role. She could feel the character's pain, joy, and confusion, and she made sure every bit of that came through in her performance. When she finished, there was a brief silence in the room. Her heart was pounding, and she held her breath, waiting for a response. The panel exchanged a few looks before one of them spoke. "That was exactly what we were looking for," they said. "You've got the role." She could hardly believe it. She had done it. She had gotten the lead part. The excitement was overwhelming, but so was the pressure. This was a huge responsibility. She was no longer just an aspiring actor. She was about to take on a role that would test everything she had learned so far. But instead of feeling afraid, she felt ready. She had come this far, and she wasn't about to let fear hold her back. In the following weeks, she threw herself into rehearsals with everything she had. The role was more challenging than anything she had done before, but she was determined to rise to the occasion. She spent hours going over her lines, talking with the director about her character's motivations, and working with her fellow actors to build chemistry. Every day, she felt herself growing as an actor. She was learning not just how to deliver lines, but how to make the audience believe the story she was telling. The days before opening night were filled with nervous excitement. She could feel the weight of the role on her shoulders, but she had never felt more alive. This was what she had been working for, and now it was time to show everyone what she was truly capable of. Finally, the big night arrived. As the lights dimmed and the curtain rose, she stepped onto the stage, her heart racing. She knew the audience was watching, but she didn't feel scared anymore. The nerves had turned into energy, and the role she had worked so hard for felt like second nature. She gave everything she had in that performance, and as the final curtain came down, the applause was deafening. The standing ovation wasn't just for the performance, it was for the journey she had taken to get there. She had started as someone who was told to play as a joke, unsure of herself, but now she was a lead actress in a professional production, loved by the audience and respected by her peers. This was the moment she had worked for, and she had made it. As the applause continued, she realized that this wasn't just a career she had built. It was a life she had shaped through passion, determination, and an unwillingness to give up. The journey was far from over, but she knew that whatever came next, she was ready. After the curtain fell on her incredible performance, the reality of what she had accomplished began to sink in. The standing ovation was not just a moment of appreciation. It felt like a reflection of everything she had worked for. The audience's applause seemed to carry with it all the hard work, the struggles, and the self-doubt she had experienced along the way. It was the kind of recognition that made every late-night rehearsal, every challenging day, and every moment of fear seem worth it. For days after the performance, she couldn't stop replaying the entire experience in her mind. It was as if time had slowed down during those final moments when the audience stood and clapped for her. She had done it. She had given everything to the role, and the feedback from the audience, the director, and her fellow actors made her realize just how much she had grown since that first casual performance at the gathering with her friends. The phone calls and messages started pouring in soon after the show ended. Directors, producers, and even other actors who had seen her perform wanted to connect. It was clear now she was no longer an unknown aspiring actor. She was a talent to be reckoned with, and opportunities seemed to be appearing left and right. It felt surreal. Just a few months ago, she had been unsure of herself, unsure if she even belonged in the world of acting. Now she had found a place in it, and that place was growing bigger by the day. As her career began to pick up, she knew she had to keep working hard to build on the momentum she had gained. She couldn't let herself get too comfortable. Every new role, every new performance was an opportunity to improve, to learn, and to refine her craft. She spent hours reading scripts, studying acting techniques, and watching performances from seasoned actors. She wanted to be the best version of herself, and she knew that to do that, she had to constantly push her limits. Despite the recognition and success, there were moments of doubt. She would look at other actors who had been in the industry for years, and sometimes she would wonder if she truly belonged in their league. But then she would remember the feeling she had when she first stood on that stage, the sense of being exactly where she needed to be. Those feelings of doubt were natural, but she refused to let them stop her. She was already on her way to proving to herself that she was more than capable. With each role she took on, her confidence grew. But more importantly, her love for acting deepened. It wasn't just about the applause anymore. It was about the process of becoming someone else, of stepping into a character's shoes and telling a story that moved people. She loved the way acting challenged her to dig deep into her emotions and put them on display for the world to see. It wasn't always easy. There were days when she felt completely exhausted or frustrated. But those moments of struggle were part of the process, and in the end, they made the victories feel even sweeter. One day, she received a call that would change the direction of her career once again. A renowned film director had seen her work in the play and wanted her to audition for a lead role in an upcoming film. This was the kind of opportunity she had only dreamed about. Films were a whole different world compared to theatre. Bigger budgets, a global audience, and a different kind of pressure. It was a whole new challenge, but it was also a massive opportunity to take her career to the next level. She knew that this was her chance to break into the film industry, but at the same time, she felt a sense of uncertainty. Theatre had been her comfort zone, where she had built her confidence and found her voice. The thought of transitioning to film was intimidating. The techniques, the pace, the set, it was all so different. But deep down, she knew she had to try. This was the kind of opportunity that could change everything. She had worked hard to get to this point, and now it was time to take the next big step. The audition was unlike anything she had experienced before. The room was larger, the crew more numerous, and the pressure much higher. But despite the nerves, she did what she had always done. She focused on the character and the story. She put herself into the role and let the emotions guide her. When she finished, the director gave her a long look, and for a moment she held her breath, waiting. Then the director smiled and said, "You've got it. We want you for the lead." It felt unreal. She had done it again. She had proven to herself that she could take on any challenge, no matter how big or intimidating. The path she had taken, from a joke performance at a friend's gathering to landing a lead role in a film, was something she would never have imagined. But here she was, about to start a new chapter in her career, one that would take her to even greater heights. With the film project starting soon, she couldn't help but feel a sense of gratitude for everything that had led her here. Every step, every struggle, and every victory had shaped her into the actor she was today. She had come so far, but in her heart, she knew this was only the beginning. The best was yet to come. As the days passed, the excitement of landing the film role began to feel more and more real. The whole experience had been overwhelming, an actor's dream come true. It wasn't just about the recognition anymore, it was about the incredible journey she had been on. She thought back to where it all began. That one night when her friends had jokingly dared her to perform. She had no idea at the time, but that was the moment everything started to change. The process of preparing for the film role was intense. Unlike theatre, where she could get immediate feedback from the audience, film acting was different. It required a lot more precision and attention to detail. The pace was faster, the set more controlled, and the environment was constantly evolving. But even though the adjustments were challenging, she loved every second of it. There was something about being in front of a camera that felt just as powerful as standing on stage. She realized that no matter the medium, acting was still about connecting with the audience, whether they were sitting in a theatre or watching from the comfort of their homes. The director and crew on the film set were different from the theatre, world she had known, but they quickly saw her passion and natural ability. They welcomed her, encouraging her to push beyond her comfort zone. The script was complex, with deep emotions and challenging scenes that required her to explore every facet of the character's psyche. Each day, she learned something new about herself, the character, and the art of acting. Sometimes, the pressure was overwhelming. The team would do several takes to get the scene just right, and there were moments when she felt like she wasn't performing at her best. On days like those, she would retreat to her trailer, take a deep breath, and remind herself why she had chosen this path in the first place. She was living her dream. And no matter how tough it got, she wasn't going to give up now. The hardest scenes were the emotional ones. She had to dig deep into her own life, drawing from her personal experiences to bring authenticity to the character. There were moments when the emotions felt too much to handle, when the tears came unbidden, and she questioned if she was giving too much of herself. But then she would remember her first performance, the one that started everything. She realized that these raw, vulnerable moments were what made acting so powerful. It wasn't about being perfect, it was about being real, being honest with yourself and the audience. With each passing day on set, her confidence grew. She began to feel more comfortable in front of the camera, letting the character take over and guiding her through the scenes. By the time they wrapped up filming, she had transformed into someone entirely different, not just as an actor, but as a person. The journey had taught her that the road to success wasn't always smooth, but the struggles along the way were what made the victories even sweeter. The premiere of the film was a huge event. It was hard to believe how far she had come, from that casual, almost forgotten dare to this moment of recognition. The red carpet, the flashing cameras, the interviews, it all felt like a dream. But the real moment came when she sat in the theatre, surrounded by her friends, family, and the people who had been a part of her journey. As the lights dimmed and the film began, she couldn't help but feel a wave of gratitude. She had made it. When the film ended, the applause was loud, and the excitement in the theatre was palpable. Her performance had resonated with the audience in a way she hadn't imagined. The critics' reviews were overwhelmingly positive, and for the first time, she realized that she wasn't just an actor who had been lucky enough to land a role. She had earned her place in this world. The recognition was nice, but the real reward was knowing that she had stayed true to herself and had given her best. In the months that followed, offers for new roles began to pour in. People now knew her name, and she was no longer just a newcomer in the industry. She was a respected actor with a promising future. But what mattered the most to her wasn't the fame or the offers. It was the journey itself. The chance to continue doing what she loved, to keep telling stories that mattered, and to keep growing as an actor and as a person. Looking back, she could hardly believe how much her life had changed. The path had not always been clear, and the road ahead was still uncertain. But she knew one thing for sure. She had found her passion, and she was never going to let it go. The journey from being the girl who was told to perform as a joke to being an actor in a lead film role had taught her more than just the craft of acting. It had taught her the power of believing in yourself, of taking chances, and of never giving up on your dreams, no matter how big or impossible they might seem. As she stepped into her next role, she knew that the best was yet to come. She had learned to embrace the uncertainty, to face the challenges head-on, and to trust in her own ability. And with that confidence, there was no limit to what she could achieve.